Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smiles. Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smiles. Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smiles. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot 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 besimcha. Be the reason someone smiles. 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 Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Someone smile. Be the reason someone smile. Be the reason someone smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Be the reason someone smiles.
Breakfast with Elli.
Mode ani lefanecha melech chai vekayam shechezarta bi nishmati bechemla raba emunatecha.
There's a fellow by the name of Michal Goodfarb who has not missed davening with a minyan in 30 years. Wherever he goes, he davens with a minyan. So it happened a number of years ago, 3 o'clock in the morning, the guy realizes, oh my gosh, I just got home from a wedding, I didn't daven Ma'ariv. Well, where's he going to daven Ma'ariv? In Yerushalayim, where's he going to get a minyan? So if you're in Flatbush, you go to Landau's, right? And if you're in Borough Park, you go to Shemesh Shabbos. And if you're in Bnei Brak, you go Rehov Rabbi Akiva, there's Zizkowitzes. What's he going to do in Yerushalayim? So there's a place called Zichron Moshe. So the guy goes down to Zichron Moshe, he walks around, there's many rooms, they always have minyanim, there's one guy there. He says, excuse me sir, you got a minyan? Did you done Ma'ariv yet? He said, no. He says, you think we'll have a minyan? He says, what are you, crazy? You know, in an hour and a half it's Vasikin. There's not going to be no more minyan. He says, I haven't missed a minyan in 30 years. I got to have a minyan. Listen to what this guy thinks up. He calls like an Israeli cab company. He says, send me 8 cabs, only Israeli drivers. 3 o'clock in the morning. The guy says, what are you talking about? Who's got 8 cabs, 3 o'clock? How many you got? 5. Send me only Israeli drivers. Then he calls another cab company. He says, send me 3 cabs. Only Israeli drivers. 10 minutes later, 8 cabs come running up to Zichron Moshe. 3:30 in the morning, everybody wants to know, where's the bar mitzvah? Where's the wedding? What in the world are we doing here? The guy says, listen what he says. He says, Rabotai, everybody start your meters and come into the synagogue. He says, I have not missed minyan in 30 years. I don't care what it cost me. Start your meters and we're going to pray Ma'ariv together. So some guys were religious guys. They knew what Ma'ariv was. Some Israeli guys, they didn't know anything. He had to give them a yarmulke. 25 minutes it took until they plowed through Ma'ariv. At the end, he goes over to the first guy who came, a frum guy. He says, how much do I owe you? He says, sir, I've been davening all my life. Never did I daven in such a holy minyan. A guy's ready to pay 8 guys on the meter. I wouldn't take a penny from you. He goes over to the secular Israeli. He says, how much do I owe you? He says, sir, I haven't been in a synagogue in 7 years. Yom Kippur, I don't even go to shul. But you forced me to come here tonight. I should pay you, not you should pay me. And not one of the 8 guys took a penny from him. Because they saw that's a commitment to a guy. That's a commitment to davening with a minyan.
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Elli. It is Monday, the 19th day of September, the 23rd day of Elul, the second day of Selichot. The Torah portion is Nitzavim. HaYom Yom Sheni l'Shabbos. The second day counting up towards Shabbos, we learn the second Aliyah. Selichos, the very word, evokes indescribable awe, to stand before the Almighty, beseeching, entreating that our prior deeds be regarded mercifully and that we be inscribed for a sweet new year. Good morning, and how are you? What is new today? Huh? What's new? You got something going? How was your Shabbat? How was your Sunday? Good Tavach from Germany, Mikhail. How are you? Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, everybody else. Too many to name by name. That's pretty exciting. All right. Let us move on and hear the blowing of the shofar. Kind of anticlimactic when the hard drive is slow. Multi-talented Sam. All right. Boys and men to boys, grab your front 2 tzitzit and let's make a bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat tzitzit.
All right. Al divrei Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah.
Hareini mekabel.
Hareini mekabel alay mitzvat aseh shel ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I take upon myself every single day to love my fellow friend in a very special way.
All right. Torah tziva lanu.
Ay Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha keilat Yaakov. Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha keilat Yaakov.
All right. About giving tzedakah.
This, my friends, is the strongest weapon in the world. But what is it? Charity, my friends, is the strongest of all weapons. When we give to those in need, we emulate our master and we bring God to give us our needs. It is a good idea to start your day by giving tzedakah, to emulate our master, and it sweetens all of the judgments. It causes divine mercy to reign upon us. May Hashem bless you all. May we merit to have the true tzedakah from Hashem with the coming of Mashiach and the building of the base of Mikdash today. Shabbat Shalom.
All right.
I put it in the pushki, it's a tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki for someone else to keep. Yeah, I put it in the pushki, that's a tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki, that's a tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki for someone else in need.
Okay, tzedakah has been given. Thank you. And now we say the Shema. Are you ready? Cover your eyes.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Which has now earned us breakfast. You ready? Let's do it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihya b'dvorei. Wow. All right, very good. Highly recommend the blueberry yogurt from Gavina. It's very, very good. Delicious. All right. Which brings us to today in Jewish history. All right. Today in Jewish history. All right. On the 301st day, you know what I'm going to talk about? Of the Great Flood. Noach sent a dove for the second time from the ark. This time, the dove stayed away all day. As it says, the dove came to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. And Noach knew it was time that the waters were abated from off the earth. On a sunny fall morning, Islamic terrorists hijacked 4 commercial jet airlines. 2 were crashed into the Twin Towers in Lower Manhattan. A 3rd rammed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., headquarters of the United States Department of Defense. The last plane was intended for Washington as well, but crashed onto a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after its passengers tried to overcome the hijackers. In total, About 3,000 people died in the attacks, including 220 civilians and 19 hijackers aboard the 4 planes. It was also the deadliest incident for firefighters in the history of the United States. Known as 9/11, it fell out today, the 23rd of Elul. The events of the day deeply affected the American approach to security and diplomacy, investigating the global war on terror. I know. Yeah, lots of miracle stories that happened on that day. All right. Reb Meir Shlomo Yanofsky was the rabbi of Nikolaev in the Ukraine from 1890 until passing. His daughter Chana married Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, and their son was the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. The Rebbe repeated a number of anecdotes about his grandfather and would say Kaddish on this date in his memory. Reb Meir Shlomo composed a number of stirring tunes that are commonly sung at Chabad Farbrengens and other occasions. Here's one. Clarinet. All right. Jivenet Hartz. If you'd like to know more about Meir Shlomo Yanofsky, please go to Chabad.org, where you will find plenty of reference, and you can hear the rest of that song. We are in the month of Elul. Oh, I have a couple more things to tell you. Yes, I do. You're right. We are in the month of Elul. But first of all, I wanted to show you, we talked the other day about the fixing up of 770 repairs and everything getting ready for Yontif. And here, I just wanted to show you, here's with the sidewalk all filled in. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And to the completely underneath all this sidewalk stuff here are heaters. And so when it does get snowy and slushy, the heaters will come on and they will melt the heat and the slush, which I think is absolutely fantastic. All right. All right, the month of Elul, traditionally a time of introspection and taking, a time to review our deeds, spiritual progress over the past year, prepare for the upcoming Yomim Noraim, days of awe, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We increase in tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah, in returning to Hashem, in prayer and in charity, and increased Ahavat Yisrael, love for our fellow. the quest for self-improvement and coming closer to Hashem. These days are 12 days to reflect, the last 12 days of the month, and today is the month of Adar. We reflect on the month of Adar today, okay? There you go. We also say 3 additional chapters of Tehillim. Today's are 67, 68, and 69. And of course, we add LeDavid Hashem Ari, chapter 27. We also say one more thing. We just celebrated the 125th anniversary of Yeshivas Tomchei Tmim Lubavitch, the yeshiva branch of Chabad Lubavitch. Oddly enough, that day came out on the day that the New York Times chose to attack religious Jews and our way of teaching our children. There have been so many articles disproving the false allegations that were put out in this article, and the accusatory nature of the article is absolutely appalling, absolutely appalling. But we'll see what comes of it, because when we are attacked is when we come together as a nation. But recently they put out a short video on the future of Chabad Lubavitch Yeshivas Tomchei Tmimim Lubavitch. Here's.
The Rebbe always teaches us that Gashmius and Ruchmius, Kol Echad, everything comes together. For many Bachrim, 770, with all its greatness and with all the chayis that's there, and being the Rebbe's Daladamis, your basic needs aren't met. You can't be a Bachrim. It just doesn't work.
If you don't have what you need, if you don't have proper food and proper place to sleep, and you're not comfortable, obviously it's much harder to focus during learning.
That'll be very geschmack. If you come, no fighting about seats, and you come the first day and this, you're able to sit down, not a big deal. No one's fighting for your seat, that would be the big thing.
The yeshiva doesn't give you an organized structure for the year, and you feel that you're independent, running by yourself. They have certain things that are available, but you have to go find it yourself. They don't come with an organized structure.
I sat there with my chavrusa for like a week, and then Bacher came and he said it's his seat and this, but then he didn't come again, and then we sat there again for a week, and then he came again and he said it's his seat, and then having the 4th week, and then it was Tishrei, and then we came after Tishrei and we sat there again for a week, and then his brother came and said that it's his seat, he got it from his brother.
Many Bachrim that come over, and Bachrim are constantly coming over and speaking and bringing up different issues and questions, and very often the issue is Gashmis related. They don't feel they have the place for them. They're not invited here because no one told them anything wrong. It's not that they can't learn, there are Sfarim, but they just don't have where to be. They can't live as normal human beings. And there's no shaila that the more we can offer to the Bachrim and the more we can take care of their Gashmias, the Ruchnias automatically follows.
The numbers of Bachrim that are going to be learning in 770 this year is between 700 and 800 Bachrim. There's no space for them. There's no dormitory space for them. There's no dining room space for them. There's no learning space for them. And there's not even enough staff to deal with them.
There's major expansion needed. How to do it, first of all, the funds necessary to do it, and how to do it need a lot of minds getting together.
And now we have a chance that we found a few Balabatim that are ready to put themselves down completely. And this will give a highest, more Balabatim. They found more Balabatim. We saw how these few Balabatim are given away completely. This makes more and more makes more. And so we'll have Abad and Balabatim.
זה דבר גדול מאוד שיש חיות חדש ומרץ חדש שהקדוש ברוך הוא הטביע באדם צעיר שיש לו מרץ וחיות.
That will work with us, understand the needs, help us raise the funds, and come up with ideas of how to do the expansion project.
This Vat came after a few years of a few younger lights that have given over their life, days and nights, to work for Tomchei Tmimim. and they're putting in a lot of their own money, and they're putting their time and their kaychas in helping the yeshiva. And together with a few younger lights, with the blessing of the yeshiva, a change is going to start, Mi'etz Hashem, to enhance the yeshiva l'teiva v'lebracha.
You see the achdus in this moisad, in this yeshiva, people from all sides coming together to build Tom Chetmim Lubavitch for every Tomim on the planet. If somebody want to come and learn in Tom Chetmimim, you should know that yeshiva is open and ready to accept them.
We got everybody on board from all the different Anhalas Yeshiva, from the Mashpiyim, Anhala Gashmi, Anhala Ruchni, everybody together on board to work on this project. And now is the time to hopefully make all this happen.
We want to make sure they have food, they have sleeping, they have a clean place to sleep, they have clean mikvahs, they have on-time scheduling.
אנחנו פה נמצאים בשביל לדאוג, בעזרת השם, לכל הבחורים שרוצים להגיע ולהיות פה ב-770, לשבת וללמוד ברוגע, שהם ידעו שיש להם את כל מה שהם צריכים, הן בגשמיות והן ברוחניות, אם זה מענה אנושי מצד הרבנים, אם זה מענה לימודי, חומרי לימוד, יששכר וזבולון, אם זה מענה גשמי, פנימיות, מיטות, צוות הדרכה מסור.
With the new VAD, we are no longer surviving, we are growing. Growing in every aspect of yeshiva.
Another floor, another 2 floors of dormitory to add some mashpim and to add places to learn.
Now 125 years of Timchei Timimim, and we can put 770 on track to be able to attract many more Bakrim, not just to bring them there, to have the tools and the kelim to hold on to them and take care of them throughout the year.
לעזור לישיבה ולתרום זה חובה של כל אחד ואחד, כי זה הישיבה של הרבי.
Because remember, the Rebbe was always different. We always see by soldiers, the soldiers all over the world.
We ask everybody to be involved. Right now we're having a fundraiser.
הדבר הכי פשוט, לא צריך לדבר על הזכות והחובה וההבנה הכי פשוטה, שכל אחד ייתן צדוקה לתמחית תמימים, מארגנים ועד מיוחד שעשו כדי לארגן, לעזור לישיבה להתחזק ולגדול לשם ולתהילה ולתפארת, אז זה הזמן לתת.
When we're going to support this Moised, b'derech memela, we are supporting our own children and we're supporting our own families, the chinuch of the next generation.
Lubavitch is growing, and Lubavitch has to think ahead. If this year there's 700, in 2 years from now there's going to be 1,000 Bachrim. Who's going to take care of them? So we're inviting everyone, and it's not me, Laser Afton, it's the Anhola, it's the Rabbeim, are inviting everyone to get involved, to say this is our home, get involved, help out, give a hand, support, dig into your pocket, take out a couple dollars. You're going to see that your money's going to good use. It's not that the money's going and that there's no Balabatischkeit. The Anhola Ruchnis is begging the Vad to get involved and to help them. And we're going to do the best we can, and by everyone working together, in Mitzvah, it's going to be a Kiddushem Lubavitch, and it's going to be the pride of Lubavitch. So please, dig in deep, help out, and you'll receive all the brachas and Mitzvah from the Rebbe and from all the Rabbeim, and you should be benched with the Ksivach Simateva, Lishon Teva Mesukah.
All right, big. Sorry about that. Big mitzvah to get involved in that if you have the opportunity. All right. The last thing is that we wish each other a ksila v'chsima teva l'shana teva m'suka, a good and healthy, sweet new year. Loving it. HaYom for today, the 23rd day of Elul. Yes, I need to read that from the book. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. HaYom Yom for today, the 23rd day of Elul. I'm going to need the glasses for this. Okay. I don't have any great anecdotes like Rabbi has, but it's still good. The Alter Rebbe's son, Reb Moshe, who was between 8 and 11 years old at the time, was studying a passage in the Gemara tractate Gittin that praises our sages and was uncertain about the meaning of what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says, study midosai. Now, there are two interpretations of this. Learn my teachings, as Rashi comments, or learn my character traits, according to the simple meaning of the term midos. As he was deliberating, the Alter Rebbe entered the room and said the following words melodically, as was his holy practice. The Torah that was given to us consists entirely of exemplary category traits, character traits, even if its punishments are really kindness and goodness. Thus, the two interpretations are in fact one and independent. It's impossible to have exemplary character traits without Torah knowledge, and it's impossible to have Torah knowledge without exemplary character traits. The Tzemach Tzedek had an identical experience when he was the same age. How about that? All right? I think that's fabulous. Learn my teachings or learn my character traits. Midos. Midos are very, very, very important. All right, 60 days to better understand our spiritual high holidays, to bring, as he says, the high holidays home, day 24.
The journey continues, day 24, compassion. We are now in the last few days before Rosh Hashanah when we say daily special prayer called the Selichot, which is supplications for forgiveness. We're actually invoking the 13 attributes of compassion that God revealed to Moses when he was on the mountain. And we don't just invoke it, we also emulate it. Just as God is compassionate, we too must be compassionate. And compassion is a tremendous attribute that we all have access to, but often don't fully exercise. It means going beyond your own comfort zone, beyond your own calculations, and really showing empathy to another person. So today, ask yourself the question, where do you stand in your compassion? If you want God's compassion, doesn't it make sense that we should create a container by being compassionate? And the exercise for the day is actually find somebody, even better, 2 people, 3 people, and show a special act of compassion that you usually would not demonstrate.
Okay. All right. I got that. Here's breaking news. All right, it's nice to break with some good news for a change over here. Monkeypox cases in the United States are falling, and no one knows exactly why. But we have some other news about that. New York City is opening 50,000 more vaccination slots. Health officials have announced more than 50,000 new appointment slots that began on Friday, and they're going to be shortening the intervals between vaccine doses, as well as making the vaccine available to those under 18 years old. Additionally, starting Friday, anyone who received their first dose at least 28 days ago can now schedule a second dose appointment immediately. Previously, the second dose was going to be 10 weeks after the first dose. A policy that was put in place to ensure sufficient supply and capacity for administration of vaccines to all eligible New Yorkers who needed their first or second doses. However, since there is now a sufficient supply, the city has changed the plan and is making the second dose available 28 days following the first dose, which is the recommended time according to the FDA. People who had their first dose between July 24th and September will receive notifications to schedule a second dose appointment. Now, are the vaccines working, or are people changing their social behavior? That's the big question. Is the virus burning itself out, and how will we know? Well, the epidemic, now 4 months old, seems to be slowing down, although new cases and serious complications are still arising. The CDC announced this week that 2 men in Colorado and Washington developed grave neurological problems that left them using walkers. Health authorities in California say a man there died as a result of monkeypox infection, and Texas experts are evaluating the death of a man in that state as well. With 22,774 known cases, the United States has racked up almost 2/5 of the world's total. Nevertheless, a recent CDC assessment says the epidemic's rate of growth is slowing. In July, it took only 8 days for United States case counts to double, and now it takes approximately 25 days for the same to happen. That the epidemic may be slowing is unquestionably good news, but there is a catch. We don't know why. The drop in cases is almost certainly due in part to people changing their behavior. Or the decline could simply be due to the virus burning itself out as it exhausts the number of people that are likely to be exposed to it. A remote possibility, but one that researchers do have to consider. Discovering which scenario is correct is important because that knowledge could help predict what comes next. Behavior changes using barrier methods, abstaining, well, it's difficult to sustain long term because pleasure is a powerful motivator. For evidence, look how we've never stopped syphilis from circulating despite centuries of trying. But researchers say it's far too early to know. We're always trying to make these calls very, very early in the game, says Anne Rimon. A Rimon is a pomegranate. An epidemiologist and professor at the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health. But the truth is, there's still a lot that has to play out before we can make that kind of assessment. We are in the to be determined phase. Well, it is possible that monkeypox could go away. Instead of 100 cases a day nationwide, there could be a handful of cases a day. Very low levels of disease can just go unnoticed. Monkeypox could just percolate through the same networks, causing mild cases until it starts becoming less mild again. The problem is, almost all researchers agree right now that it is too soon to tell. Not enough history to predict the trajectory and not enough data to model the behavior with precision. The immediate future becomes a gamble which we can bet can improve, in which we can bet that we can improve our knowledge and containment before the virus reaches and reveals what it is capable of. So still get your vaccines, still go out there and be careful, all right? The United States government still designates COVID-19 as a public health emergency, and the World Health Organization says it remains a public health emergency of international concern, despite what the leader of any country says in any 60-minute interview. Data shows there are about 65,000 new cases reported every day over the past 2 weeks, and reported cases of COVID are dropping in every state almost. However, there are still about 400 people in the United States dying every day from COVID-19. 400 deaths a day in the United States. This is not to be taken lightly, okay? All right. And now a word from our sponsors. Which will come as soon as it decides to. Okay, let's go.
And now, a word from our sponsors. PestProRidol.com.
PestProRidol.com. Trusted by the best to keep away the pests. We are offering COVID-19 disinfection services. Mention this ad and get 1 month free service. Visit us at PestProRidol.com.
Tarzane Group. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Go to tarzanegroup.com or call Tomas at 305-440-0565. That's 305-440-0565 and order today. Visit Tomas and Yair at tarzanegroup.com. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Beautiful in your home. Go to the website and read Tomas's orchid blog. And by Dina D Design. DinaDDesign@gmail.com. Fine artwork, custom made to your specifications, logos, wall hangings, Judaica, and you can even have something for your child's room. Dina D Designs. Go to her Facebook or Instagram or call or text. Thank you very much to our sponsors. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please go right up here to where it says patreon.com/theactorsrabbi, and you can contribute even only $1 a month if you'd like, but that'll help us bring this broadcast to you on a daily basis and cover our expenses. Be sure to thank your sponsors when shopping and mention Breakfast with Elli when you're shopping there. There might be discounts. Thanks for watching.
Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe.
All right, patreon.com/theactorsrabbi or breakfastwithelli.live/tipjar for you to contribute today. All right, Parshas Nitzavim, saying it by itself this week. As we said previously, in the third and final section of the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, Moshe summarizes the covenantal relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. After having discussed the consequences of honoring and violating the terms of Hashem's covenant in Parshas Kisavai, he focuses on the essential nature in the following two Parshas, Nitzavim and Vayelech. For the public reading of the Torah on Shabbos, these two Parshas are, in most years, read together. In fact, according to some opinions, they're actually one Parsha, which is only occasionally split in two, as it is in this week's calendar. Their common theme, as we said, is the covenant. Parshas Nitzavim, Atem Nitzavim HaYom, you are standing, planted, focused on Hashem's side of this covenant. While Parshas Vayelech, and you will go, focuses on the people's side. Now, this difference in focus is first of all reflected in the names of these two Parshas. Nitzavim means standing, and Vayelech means and he walked. The adjective standing, implying the maintenance of a firm and immutable posture, is most aptly applied to Hashem, who by definition is absolute, unchanging, perfection. I am Hashem, lo shanisi, I have not changed. The Jewish people, however, are intended to walk an infinite road of self-refinement, always changing. Koyamar Hashem Tzvakos, this is what Hashem, the Lord of hosts, said, if you walk in my paths and keep my charge, you will also rule my house and guard my courts. I will enable you to walk, in contrast to those angels who only stand stationary. And we will continue this tomorrow. I know, so short. It's a short parsha. In the second Aliyah, the covenant established the Israelites as Hashem's exclusive nation. The covenant, Moshe explains, was not limited to those who were physically present on that day, but included all future generations of Jews as well. And there's our proof text from our Torah.
Nitzavim Sheni. So 3 psukim that talks about the shvua that Hashem and the bris that Hashem made with Klal Yisrael. The last pasuk is Asher Yeshnei Po Yimanu Omer HaYom. Everyone that's here today and everyone that's not here, all the neshamas of all the future generations were there, and they were nichnas into this bris and shvua with Hashem. The Imrei Noyam, going back to the Rosh Hashanah theme, he says, the Gemara and Chagiga, I think in Tainus also, it says, who says Eidus on a person? A person doesn't have Chas v'Shalom behind closed doors. The Gemara says, in the Shama, it says, the Koyrois Beisay Me'idin, that the person, the beams of his house, the bricks of his walls, all these things that we think are inanimate objects, they all have a nefesh. They're an actual ruchniistic entity. And they say Eidus on a person. And it brings a pasuk in Chavokok that says, Even mikir tizok, v'chofes me'eti aneno. Even mikir tizok, the stone in the wall will scream out, and the piece of wood in the beam will answer it. So Mefarshim explained that if it's stolen, a person stole a brick and built it into his house, they're screaming. We just don't hear it with our gashmistic ears, but they scream on the Yom Hadin and they say, Eidus, I'm stolen, don't touch me, return me. The Gemara in Shavuos on Daf Lamed, it says that we learn out that Eidus is ba'amida from the word Nitzavim. The Edom have to be standing. So it says the Imrei Noyam, Atem Nitzavim HaYom. Nitzavim is, like we said, standing is a reference to Eidus. Atem is Rosh Tevis Even Mikir Tizok. The brick in the wall will scream out. And HaYom, Yoim is Rosh Tevis V'chafis Me'eti Anenu. So you could say that that's the remez over here also. As Asher Yeshnei Po Yimanu Oimed HaYom. Oimed is standing, which is Eidus. And HaYom is V'chafis Me'eti Anenu. Is going to say Eidus on a person of Fnei Hashem Leikeinu. I want to add, maybe you could say, my Rebbe, Olav Shalom, Reb Lezer Hirsch, he explained once, he showed me a tshuva from the Tzitz Eliezer, it brings a Chassam Seifer. It says, the Gemara asks, how come we don't say Halal on Yom Noiraim? So he says that all the previous generations, all the person's relatives, everyone that was nifter already, they all come and daven with us in Shul on Yom Noiraim. And there's an Indian called Loeg Larush. We don't want to stick in the face of somebody who can't do a mitzvah, especially a mace, that he can't do a mitzvah. And the pasuk says, the dead, they don't sing. So if we were to sing, and when the Mason are with us, it will be sticking it in their face. That's why we don't say halal. So it could be, you could find a remez for that over here, when it says, everyone that's here, and whoever is not here, they already were nifter, imanu hayoim. They're here today with us, and like the Zohar says, Hayom is Rosh Hashanah, they're here with us, davening. And that takes us to Shlishi.
All right, absolutely, positively beautiful. Here's Rabbi Chaim Marder with some very, very interesting perspectives on the pruzbul. A pruzbul is a document that needs to be signed after Shemitah. Well, he's going to explain it.
Boker Tov, good morning. We continue with our 3-minute daily dose of Torah today, focusing on something that is important for anyone who has money that is owed to them by a fellow Jew, especially if there's a loan that was made. So this is the week that you can collect your loans if they were made, at least as a din Torah. This is what the Torah said back in Parshat Re'eh. Mikate Sheva Shanim Taseh Shemitah. At the end of 7 years, you should make a Shemitah. This is the Shemitah year, and at the end of the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year, the end of the sabbatical year, this is what we have. B'zeh Devar Shemitah. This is the matter. Shamot kol bal mashe yado asher yasher b'reihu lo yakos et reihu bet achiv ki kara Shemitah l'Adonai. You were not permitted. You should cause to rest. Anyone who owes money wants to collect that money. He may not collect that money from his neighbor or his brother because we call it Shemitah to God. That basically says that loans are canceled. Debts are canceled once the end of the 7th year comes. Hillel, the great sage Hillel, saw that this was the goal here was to provide relief to a borrower who was inundated by his debts. We referenced this, I think, a few weeks ago. and it was an act of chesed that you were doing. But Hillel found that people were in the end not offering loans to people because they didn't want to run up against this. And so the needs of the poor were actually not served by this, especially in a society in which loans became more dominant in how they were used. And so Hillel developed a workaround, as it were, to the rule in the Torah. And it works on a principle seemingly related to the following: that this halacha applies to an individual Jew who lent money, but if money is owed to the Beit Din, to the Jewish court, not to an individual, the Shemitah rules don't apply. And so the Prose Bowl, that's what it's called, that Hillel created, is basically in line with this principle of handing your shtarotav, the debts that you are owed, to the Beit Din. The Beit Din will own the debt, and the Beit Din then permits you to collect it and then keep it. So it's a workaround, there's no question, but for the sake of the needy that the original mitzvah of the Torah was attempting to accomplish. If you are owed money because you lent money to a fellow Jew and you want to collect it, this is the week in which to create the Prose Bowl. I'm going to attach to this email a Q&A about this and a form, and ask that you reach out to me now, today, if you would like to organize a Prose Bowl and would like me to play a role in helping you do so. So now's the time. And if you don't have debts that are owed to you, please don't do this. Don't say maybe I have it. No, if you have a debt that you want to collect, this is what you go through. You set up in order to make that collection. So follow up on it today with me, and we'll help you through. Wishing you all a great day.
All right. I think that's great. Yep. All right. Here is Rabbi Shayamar.
Atem Nitzavim HaYom Kulechem. You all stand before me today on this great day. What day are we referring to? The Aramaic translation to this verse says, Yoma de Dina Rabba, the day of the great judgment, the day of Rosh Hashanah, the day where every single one of us stands before God and is given all the blessing, is judged for our past actions and for the future. Our sages in the Talmud of Beit Zion, page 16, say that the parnasah, the sustenance of a person, is granted to him on the day of Rosh Hashanah. So this doesn't really make sense, because there's a contradiction. Somewhere else the Talmud says, in the name of Rabbi Yossi, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Adam nidon b'chol yom. Man is judged daily. And every day, according to that day, he is given his sustenance. So are we judged on Rosh Hashanah? Or are we judged on the day of our life? To answer this, I'd like to share with you a story. One day, I was flown to Israel with a young man which unfortunately got addicted to oxycodone. He was taking tens and tens of pills, enough to kill a horse. But I don't know how he made it by the grace of God. We took him to Barzilai, to Dr. Weissman, in order to get a rapid detox. The doctor explained to me something fascinating. He said, you see, how it works in the brain is that normally, in order to have a high, to have pleasure, we have the natural resources inside our brain. We have endorphins, we have dopamine, and we have these receptors in the brain which feel the good feeling. What happens is, as long as we satisfy ourselves with our own excitement, the secretions of the brain have enough receptors to be able to receive and to benefit of the pleasures that we feel in our mind. The problem is when a person suddenly takes drugs. When he takes substances, he actually creates more receptors, because now in order to benefit and to take pleasure in these different substances, we need more receptors. So for example, imagine you only need 100,000 receptors in order to benefit of your natural pleasures, your natural secretions in your brain. Suddenly, you take an outside source to benefit of a new pleasure. Suddenly now you're going to have 1 million different receptors which are created in order to benefit of the new pleasure which is external, which is not natural. It's like someone that's going on a diet. From now on, I'm going to stop the white flour, I'm going to stop the sugar, but I'm hungry. So if you're hungry and you have one stomach, you can work on yourself, and really, if you're strong enough, if you have enough will, you'll be able to control your hunger. What happens if suddenly you have 10 stomachs saying, I'm hungry? It's going to be impossible. So that's what the doctor explained to me. As long as you have your natural resources, you have your natural receptors which Hashem gave you in your brain, then you can control the types of pleasures you will seek. You can take control of yourself. But the moment you've introduced a substance which is outside and you've created all these little stomachs, these little receptors which demand day in and day out more pleasure, it's almost impossible without cleansing yourself to be able to take control of your life again. On the day of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, God gives us all the blessings. As Chassidut explains, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed. God gives you the blessing and He gives you the receptors, the recipients, in order to receive the blessings. If you become a true recipient, you will receive an abundance of blessings with just enough receptors to benefit of life. If, on the other hand, as you go through the year, you lose trust, you lose faith, God forbid, for a moment, you go into a mode where you forget your connection with Hashem and you look for external sources. You do things which are not right in order to have more sustenance. At that moment, you become subservient to the outside instead of the great blessings that God gave you. So, on Rosh Hashanah is the time for us to become completely subservient to Hashem. Surrender to Him, become a recipient for Him. And the more space you give Him, the more He will fill your basket with blessing. And then for the rest of the year, you will continue with that same faith, and you will not need to be judged every day. The judgments of Rosh Hashanah will just flow, and the blessings of Rosh Hashanah will flow for the rest of the year, and you will not lack anything.
You like that? I thought you would. All right. Rabbi Lewin.
Shabbat Shalom. In this week's parasha, or Parashat Nitzavim, we read about how Moses gathers the Jewish people to involve them in a brit, a covenant between themselves and God. This covenant is entered into by all the members of the community that are standing there, men, women, children, etc. But what is fascinating is that this covenant is entered into not just by the Jewish people that were present at that time, but all generations afterwards, which means that I and you are part of that covenant. And this raises a fascinating question that I was approached with a few weeks ago. And that was, someone asked me, how can it be? That's not fair. Why am I being committed to a covenant where I had no say in it? I wasn't asked, I wasn't approached, and now I have to deal with this legacy that has been thrust upon me without me even understanding. And I said to them, you ask a fantastic question, because that is the question that each and every one of us has. How do I deal with the fact that I was commanded or given or burdened with a decision that was made generations ago and applies to me this very day? And I like to express it by the following story. Imagine the following. And I like to take my own story about my great-grandfather who was given a bag full of books. In this bag are the books of the Talmud, of Jewish philosophy, of Jewish law. And he was carrying this bag on his back. And he was very excited and very proud of the fact that he had these books because he loved to study them. But when he handed them over to the next generation, they were not as keen. Maybe they didn't study as hard. But he made sure to keep the bag of books. And that was handed on to the next generation. And then to the following generation. And then down to me. And I had this box of books. I didn't understand them. I couldn't read Hebrew. But strangely enough, I felt a pull to these books. And it started a journey to learn about what was inside of them. Going to yeshiva, learning how to read Hebrew, improving my skills in Hebrew, to eventually opening up those books and learning from them. And the rest, as they say, is history. But the amazing thing was that I open up these books and I'm seeing what my great-grandfather read and what he loved. And although there were gaps between the generations down to me, it didn't matter because we had the books. And this is the great legacy of the Jewish people. That generations ago, our great-great-grandparents stood in front of Moses and made a commitment to him that they would pass on the legacy from generation to generation. They handed over that bag of books. And although there were generations that were less inclined, and there were many who decided they did not want to carry these books because they were too heavy and put them down and wanted nothing to do with them, there were those of us who kept on carrying those books and being given to every single one who calls themselves Jewish today. And the challenge now becomes, what do I do with these books? On the one hand, I can choose to study them, to learn what they are. But that's going to take time, effort, commitment. Or I can put them down and say, I don't do them anymore. I am the master of my own destiny. I'm going to forge on my own path. And maybe if you take that path, you'll be lost to our people. Or you might choose a third path, which says, I don't know about these books. I don't know what's inside of them. But I know that they are important because my father felt they were important. My grandmother felt they were important. My great-grandparents felt they were important. And even though we haven't actually had a generation that's opened those books, I feel that they are important. They must be important. And if they're important, was important to them, they must be important to the next generation. And it might not be my child. It might not be my grandchild. It might be a great-grandchild that becomes connected to what is in the words that are in those books. Atem Nitzavim, says Moshe Rabbeinu. You are standing here today. You were the ones whose parents stood at Mount Sinai and heard the living God speaking, bequeathing to us the Torah, bequeathing to us the values and the systems, what we call Judaism. The choice is always there, he writes in the parasha. Choose between them. But one thing we couldn't do was just discard the books or throw them away. Generations have hung on to them. And the question that I always have, and I leave and I challenge you, is what was it that they saw in those books, that they felt within in their Jewish souls, that meant they would never give up on being Jewish? And if you can answer that question, then you are ready to enter into Rosh Hashanah for a blessed and happy new year. Much to think about. Shabbat Shalom and a Shana Tova.
All right. Let's think about it. Pirkei Avos, chapters 5 and 6, finishing off summer.
Hello, and welcome to another Pirkei Avos text explication with your host, me, Rabbi Drew. We are now on the 7th text in the 5th chapter, and we have seen so far in the first 6 texts, the number 10 is really the big number, the operating sort of principle, as it were, and also a lot of things relating both to biblical items as well as, or biblical stories, as well as things related to the temple. We are now transitioning to the number 7. Okay, the number 7 now for the next couple of texts are going to be sort of the operating number. Now, just as we have seen though throughout so far this 5th chapter, is that there are no names attached to these texts. In fact, I think there are a handful of named statements in the back of the chapter, but this chapter really is dominated by anonymous statements. Okay, so I mentioned the number 7. Here we go. Shiva Devarim Bagolam V'Shiva B'Chacham. There are 7 characteristics. There are 7 things that we could say about this is really interesting. The word in Hebrew is golem, kind of like the golem the famous golem of the Maharal of Prague. But this is more of like sort of like an idiot, right? But you also have Shiva B'Chacham. And there are 7 things that we can talk about a wise person. So a Chacham, now we're going to see 7 characteristics of a Chacham, of a wise person, and here they are. A wise person does not speak before someone who is greater than this person in wisdom, and it's interesting, in wisdom uveminyan, and counting. Okay, and counting. What does that mean, counting? A little unclear. I would suspect it's talking about age. So both someone who is wiser than this person in both wisdom and age. They don't interrupt their friend's speech. Okay, so the other person's talking, you don't interrupt. That is a sign of a wise person. They're not interrupting. Number 3, they're not hasty to answer, right? They answer sort of in a timely fashion. They're not super quick to sort of, not even just interrupting, but just like super quick. That's an interesting one. Shoel ka'inim meshim kahalacha. They ask what is relevant and answers to the point. Okay, so it's very direct. They, both in the asking and in their responses, they're very succinct and to the point. They stay on topic, as it were. V'omer al Rishon, Rishon v'acharon, acharon. So they speak about, or perhaps even ask about, what is first, and they answer what is last. So they stay in order. Very orderly, you can see. Va'alma shelo shama, omer lo shamati. And about something that they have not heard, they actually admit, I haven't heard about this. Or maybe they don't know, right? They don't try to say as something they haven't heard. They don't try to say, oh, I know it's such and such, when in truth they really don't know, right? This is something that they are honest about their lack of having heard something, maybe even knowledge. They're honest about this. And they don't try to pretend that they know something that they don't. Umoda al ha'emet. The 7th one is, and they admit to what is true. They acknowledge the truth. Okay, they acknowledge the truth. Okay, these 7 things. And then the text ends, v'chilu fehem bagolem. And the opposites are true with this sort of, this golem person, but this sort of, it's not even just an idiot. It's someone really who is, the translation I have in front of me is a clod, but I would say someone sort of an uncultured person. It's not only the opposite of someone who is wise, I wouldn't even play it off as a wise person versus an idiot. That would be too easy of an opposite. I really would say it as someone who is a wise person and one who is perhaps uncultured. Okay, so if we were to think about what are the opposites, so they do speak in front of someone who is wiser and perhaps older than this person. That's number 1. 2 is they do interrupt their fellow person. Number 3, they are hasty to answer. Number 4 is they, instead of asking about a certain matter and responding and accordingly, They don't. They're just sort of all over. Number 5, instead of talking about what is first and last, they actually mix it all up. They're out of order. Number 6, something they haven't heard, they say I haven't heard. Here, this Golem person would actually say, even though they haven't heard about this topic, they would speak anyways, as if they had heard about it. And then finally, instead of acknowledging the truth, they might not be willing to acknowledge the truth. So that would be the converse here of a wise person. So these 7 characteristics, and as we see, these are not 7 characteristics that have anything, as we've seen in the first 6 texts, that have anything to do biblically or with the temple. These are just characteristics of people, and not just simply characteristics of people as if this is something that people do. All 7 of these things are specifically with regards to conversation, right? So interpersonal conversation. How does someone come across when they're talking or conversing with someone else? So all 7 of these characteristics, which sort of, are everlasting, right? We can see these in our time as well. That someone who is orderly can respond appropriately, we would say they're certainly wise. All right. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay. Fantastic. We've got it. All right. Tehillim, chapter 27 of Tehillim. B'Shem Hashem Ari. Let's go.
David, Adonai ro'i v'ishi mimi ira, Adonai ma'oz chayai mimi evchad, B'krov alai mireim lechol es b'sari, Tzorai v'oiv li, Hema kashlu v'nafalu, Im tachane alai machane, Lo yira libi, Im takum alai milchama, Bizos ani voteach, Achas sho'alti me'es Adonai, Osa avakesh, Shivti b'ves Adonai, Kol yemei chayai, Lachazos b'noam Adonai, Ulevaker b'heichalo, Ki itzpeneni b'suko, B'yom ra'a yastireni, B'seiser aholo, B'tzur yiromemeni, Ve'ata yarum roshi al oevai sivivosai, Vezbecha ve'aholo ziv chesrua, Ashira v'azamer al Adonai, Shma Adonai koli ekra, V'choneni va'aneni, Lecha amar libi, Bakshu fanai, Es panecha Adonai avakesh, Al taster panecha mimeni, Al tat be'af avdecha, Ezrasi hayisa, Al titsheni, Ve'al ta'azeveni Elohei yishi, Ki avi v'imi azavuni, V'Adonai ya'asefeni, Horini Adonai darkecha, Unecheni be'orach mishor, Leman shorerai, Al titeneni b'nefesh tsarai, Ki kamu vi ede sheker, V'yifeach chamas, Lule hemanti liros b'tuv Adonai, Be'eretz chayim, Kaveh el Adonai, Chazak v'ya'ameitz libecha, V'kaveh el Adonai.
Right. We now get Tanya in 5 for today. 23rd day of Elul.
Thank you for joining Tanya in 5. Today's lesson for the 23rd of Elul. We conclude the 16th letter of Igeres HaKodesh. This letter speaking about tzedakah, charity, and the importance that even when you're down and out, you should still open your hand and give to others. And in particular, we're talking about that the law says that if you have things that are of a finer quality in life, like meat on the table, but someone else doesn't have bread, a fellow Jew doesn't have bread on the table, then you're not on the equal footing, and therefore you need to forego halachically the meat in order that the bread should be on the table of another family. Now the Alter Rebbe says that this is all according to the strict measure of the law, that when you have more than others, that you need to take care of those who have less. But in fact, however, even when such reasoning doesn't apply, in other words, you're both on equal footing, you both need bread on the table. Now, the Rebbe says it behooves everyone not to be particular, insisting to go by the letter of the law, but one should set aside one's own life and go far beyond the measure of the law, beyond the letter of the law. A person should be concerned for their own sake, as the statement of our sages say. For a person who is exacting in all matters of the law, he will eventually, or be exacting in a matter, not all matters, but in a matter, the sages say, this person will eventually be brought to it. So, in other words, if you're judging in such a manner, you'll be brought to that judgment yourself. And after all of us need, at all times, mercy from heaven. And how do we elicit that mercy from heaven? Through the arousal from below, by us arousing at all times and every moment through our compassion for those who are in need, because we need to have compassion upon them. Now, but a person, the Rebbe continues and says, who hardens their heart and suppresses this compassion, even though it might be a legitimate reason, nonetheless, this causes the same above. When we mean legitimate over here, obviously, we're not talking giving to a drug addict, that you should not have compassion upon them. We're talking about someone who really doesn't have, and you're on equal footing, and you're giving your last $5, but I need that $5 for myself to eat, but I'm giving that person. That's the equal footing that we're talking about. So if you would suppress that compassion, then what you're doing is suppressing the compassion also above, because we need to elicit God's compassion through our compassion over here. Especially we need to consider that there isn't a righteous person upon earth that does good always and does not sin. In other words, we need this charity in order to atone and to protect us against misfortune. Charity, therefore, is the actual cure for the bodily need, health, and misfortune that might come to body and soul as a result. This applies especially as believers, as we are descendants of believers, that charity is but alone to God Himself. As it's written, it says in the Torah, in the verse, that he who is gracious unto the poor lends unto God Himself, and God will repay that good deed. And as the Alter Rebbe adds, He will repay that good deed in a manifold manner in this world. Now, no other commandment do you get the reward for what you do in this world except for charity. Why is that? Because through charity you're being beneficial to creatures, to people in this world, so therefore God will be give you the beneficence in this world. Also, one should be concerned about any punishment, heaven forfend, that would come to an individual because the community is involved in this mitzvah. And here we're speaking about the charity that's going to people who are truly destitute in the Holy Land of Israel. Back in those days, they really had nothing. There was not like in Russia, they had hard times, but no comparison to what was going on in Israel at the time, in the Holy Land. And therefore, we should be concerned that the whole community is rallying around giving charity to the Holy Land, and you remain outside of that group effort. When you don't associate in the group efforts, our sages say that not a very good thing comes to that individual. So therefore, give heed. And when you give heed, and you will be giving, blessings of goodness will come your way. Do good, and God will do good unto the upright. And as a result, be charitable, even when it's difficult. And that is Tanyan 5. Thank you for joining.
All right. Sefer HaMitzvos of the Rambam is up next.
No, it's not impossible that Rebbe did say, just study Rambam each and every day. I'll never miss
number
my
100.
daily Rambam.
Just like when harvesting stalks of grain, it's possible that some of the stalks may not make it into the bundle. When harvesting a vineyard, the same may happen. Certain grapes may fall down to the floor and be missed in the process of harvesting. These are called peret. Positive mitzvah 124 is the commandment to leave peret for the poor, and negative mitzvah 213, the flip side of this, not to take peret for oneself. Positive mitzvah number 122 is to leave shikha for the poor, and negative mitzvah 214 is the flip side, not to take shikha for oneself. What is shikha? Shikha means forgotten and is a reference to stalks that were forgotten to be harvested in the process of cutting down the grain. If 1 or 2 stalks were left uncut, they must be left for the poor. More than that may be reclaimed by the owner. Additionally, shikha also applies once the grain has been bundled. If one forgot 1 or 2 bundles, he may not go back and reclaim it. If he forgot more than that, or if he forgot a single bundle, which is very big, then he may also go back and reclaim that.
All right. Matters of Mashiach are up next. All right. It says in the Torah portion, "Behold, I have placed before you today a blessing." We have to announce and publicize everywhere with heartfelt words that Hashem tells us through his prophets that he has placed before us a blessing. And today, we literally see with our very eyes the blessings of the true and complete redemption. We have to realize that redemption is something that is being given to us now and is here for the taking. We have to simply recognize the bracha, the blessings that Hashem is granting us, and use them as we begin to live with and experience the Geula personally. That is how we can change the entire world. Here are our PSAs. Masbias food. Pantry food and hot meals every single day. In Rockland County, tomcheshabbos.org, and in Lakewood, it is tomche.org. While in Chicago, it is the Chicago Center Kitchen at breakfastwithelli.live/Chicago Food Bank. All right? I know you got that. For anything else that you may need, achiezer.org is there. achiezer.org is there to help you. You can contact them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year should you need them. That doesn't mean break Shabbos and just call them and say, hey, how you doing? Okay? It means if you need them, they're there. As is Hatzalah. Hatzalah EMS. Are you ready? Hatzalah EMS. 24-hour day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The best EMS service in the world. Okay? All right. Miss Oskim. MissOskim.org is there if you need help in case of bereavement. That is very, very important. All right? Take this number down should you ever need it. They're there for you. All right? If you are, God forbid, the victim of or see a hate crime in progress, you need to call 911 even on Shabbos and even on Yom Tov. All right? Very, very important. Speaking of Shabbos, JustOneShabbos.com is there to help you help teenagers come back to the beauty of keeping Shabbos. And I think that's amazing. They're a great organization. And I think we still need to be wearing masks.
Wear a mask.
My take
Is
on
this
it,
really much to ask?
We'll
Tie
see
some
again how I
fabric round your face. It's the
as we get
simplest
into
of tasks.
the winter
At
months.
the gym, at the store. Don't treat it like such a
All
chore.
right, let's see how we get into the winter months, and let's see what the numbers do, and then I will reevaluate based on what the CDC says, and of course my feelings on the matter. But I think for right now we still need to be wearing masks, and for sure we need to be getting our vaccinations. Okay, please keep that in mind. The vaccinations are available. No matter who you are, you can now get a vaccination. All right, and we are on our our third booster shot. So please, let's do that. Okay. All right. For Monday, the 23rd day of Elul, one must accept Ol Malchus Shemayim, the yoke of the service of Hashem. The soldier accepts upon himself readiness to execute every command given to him by the one above. Yep. Bring heaven down to earth. A college student once asked the Rebbe, "What is your job?" The Rebbe gestured to the ceiling of his room and replied, "See that light bulb? Connected by wires to a power plant that powers the whole of Brooklyn. And that plant is connected to turbo generators at Niagara Falls that power the entire state of New York and more. Every one of us is a light bulb wired to an infinitely powered generator. But the room is still dark because the connection has not yet been made. The job of a Rebbe is to take your hand in the dark room and help it find the switch." Yeah. Right? All right. Sparks of wisdom for the month of Tishrei, for the days before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Avinu Malkeinu ein lonu melech ela ata. Our Father, our King, we have no king but you. Said in the high holiday prayer of Avinu Malkeinu. The question for the day is, what might be the alternative kings that we are disavowing in this prayer? Oh, what a great question. Ein lanu melech ela ata. What other kings could there possibly be that we are talking about? You want to talk about it with me? Come to me in any of the Actors Rabbis groups at WhatsApp, Twitter, Spaces, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, or at theactorsrabbi.com, where you can sign up for life coaching service. We are in our countdown to Rosh Hashanah. All right? Yep. Sunday night. I know. All right, let's make an after bracha.
Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam boirei nefashos rabois v'chesronan al kol ma sheborasa lachayos bohem nefesh kol chai baruch chai haolamim.
All right, well, we have come to the end of another broadcast day. That's right. I am so glad that you're here with me through this. It's amazing. It's amazing what we've accomplished here. The learning that we have done and the amounts of Torah that we have learned and given out to the community and to the world. It's positively amazing. So thank you for being a part of that. I could not do this without you. Ein melech bli am. There is no king without a nation. Not that I'm not a king, but you know what I meant. Okay? Yeah. Don't take it the wrong way. But do know that I thank you very much. Thank you to my Patreon sponsors, Pest Pro Red, Tarzan Orchids, Dina D Design, Dr. Susan Spitzer, Bracha Biederman. Become a sponsor today by going to patreon.com/actressrabbi or breakfastwithelli.live/tipjar and contribute today and be a part of bringing Torah to the world. All right, Ben C. Marcus has a beautiful brand new video called Aliyah, which is Aliyah to go higher, not just an Aliyah going up to the Torah, not just going up, but going higher and higher in our avodas Hashem, in our service to Hashem. And Benzi Marcus is absolutely wonderful. So Monday. Yep. Go out and do something nice, something good for someone today. In the words of Rabbi Isaac Hamler, have affection for a fellow. Hashem will have affection for you. Do a kindness for a fellow. Hashem will do a kindness for you. Befriend a fellow, and Hashem will befriend you. Go out there and make it a great and glorious day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Please bring at least a dozen people to watch with you. Bye.
You gotta step down to raise up. You gotta step down to raise up. You gotta step down to raise on up. Gotta take that chance, gotta break your stance, gotta fill that void, ain't got no choice. Gotta head on down the road to come home. You gotta cast your line out to reel one in. Gotta plant and sow before you can watch it grow. You gotta take that chance, gotta break your stance, gotta fill that void, gotta make that choice. הנשמה ירדת לסויך הגוף. הנשמה ירדת לסויך הגוף. וירידה זו בצורך עליות. You gotta pull back to let that arrow fly. You gotta step to the plate and give it a try. You gotta step down to raise yourself on up. Gotta take that chance, gotta break your stance, gotta fill that void, ain't